Hey everyone. Oh, hey Cloud Gurus. Welcome to this Azure live stream. This is actually our first Azure related live stream, specifically the AZ-900. We've done a few AWS ones in the past. But anyway, my name is Gwen. I'm an training architect here at ACG. And I'm not alone. We have actually a couple of team members in the chat. If those people could just send like, I don't know, like a waving emoji or something like that, so that people know who you are. And I'm also here with the one and only very talented and very funny Lars Klint. Lars, do you want to say hi?
No. Yeah, right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this live stream. This is very cool. We haven't actually done this before, as Gwen just alluded to earlier. Now, I should just preface this because, yes, I'm in my studio, and yes, I do live on a farm, and yes, I am on satellite internet. So see, I'm already freezing, but I think my audio is coming through. There we go. So we're going to have lots of fun with this satellite connection that I am on. But it is what it is. I live in the middle of Australia. I'm pretty sure I have, yeah, let me just check. Yes, I am the only one using our internet connection in this country right now, so I should be good. It should be good, but we're going to see. Yeah, oh, it's looking good on the stream. I'm freezing all over the place, but we'll get through this. That's why Gwen's hosting. So thanks, Gwen. And over to you again, I think.
Thank you. Just like a news section kind of thing. Anyway, we've got a couple of things for today. We have some frequent questions that we're going to go through at the beginning. Then we'll dive into sample questions so you get a feel for how these will go through the practice questions. And then we actually have 5 practice questions with answers and tips included. And we're going to try to have some time left over at the end to answer any questions from the chat. So let's dive right in actually to the frequent questions. Just make sure my PowerPoint's up. There we go. All right, first one. How long should I prepare for the AZ-900 Azure Fundamentals exam? Lars is actually the author of our AZ-900 course. I'm sure he has more insight into this question. So Lars?
Yeah, it's one of those questions of, how long is a piece of string? How long should I prepare? The really, really useful answer is, it depends. No, you're not useful at all. You got to kind of get comfortable with what the material is. So AZ-900 is not in depth. It's sort of a broad spectrum of almost everything on Azure. Say almost, there's a lot of other stuff on Azure that you obviously don't need to know about, but in general, all the services and topic areas. So go through and kind of get a sense for what Azure is, and then maybe go through it again. How long you should prepare. There's not really a good answer for that. It's sort of, what will you do at a, say an exam at university or school? But make sure you sort of, you feel comfortable with explaining what a service does. Not necessarily how to use it or how to integrate with other things. That comes later in your certification or Azure journey. But you do need to have this sort of, okay, I think I know what I'm doing now. We all get this kind of like, oh, I'm sure there's more I need to know. But yeah, a general term, how long should I prepare? Long enough. Do you want to add to that, Gwen?
I think that's a solid answer. I don't really have much more to add to that. But yeah, give it your best. Try to consistently study, and I'm sure you can get through it. Really just depends on the experience. All right, let's hop over to the next question. There's so much to learn. Where do I start, and how do I get started? All right, I have a little bit of insight into this, I think. I know when you're getting started learning, for your first cloud certification, it's quite confusing. I've been there. But what I can say is, pick whatever certification you want to study for. In this case, the AZ-900. Find some, solid learning material that works for you, because we're all different. Different things work for different people, and kind of just, stick the course really, and like, see that through. It's I know with myself, like, I go on Twitter and I go on LinkedIn and I see all these people like getting accomplishments and passing their certifications, and I kind of feel like, oh, I'm not going quick enough, or I'm not doing it the right way. But kind of stay your pace, follow your own learning journey, and then follow your course. And one thing I also can say is, as you're studying for a certification, kind of try to figure out what parts of studying you feel that you've been most interested or you want to look into more, because that could be a solid hint into what your next step in your learning journey would be. But yeah, just pick a certification, pick material, and like keep on that, and I think you'll find your way there. Lars, would you like to add anything to that?
It's a bit like it's a bit of a cliche, but it's sort of like, how do you eat an elephant? And well, it's one bite at a time, right? You got to start somewhere. And especially with, say, AZ-900, like we're going through today, a lot of people that go into this certification or this sort of level just don't have any background. They don't have anywhere to say, oh, I already know this bit, I'll start there. So, you know, shameless plug, the course that I've done on ACG is a good place to start, but also there's a lot of Microsoft Learn material. That's a good place to start. Or ask people on Twitter, or you might have a colleague. Like this, it really depends on how you like to learn as well. And there's not really a wrong place to start, to be honest. It's, you know, maybe try and get set up a free Azure account. That's a good place to start. At least you can kind of get in and press buttons, but it's just start somewhere and go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that was great. Actually, to add on to that, don't feel bad if like you're following some kind of course and there's like something that you need to, you know, search up or look further into. You know, Lars mentioned the documentation is a great place to look up certain things. Yeah, that's great info. Let's go to the next one.
I just want to touch on the chat as well for a minute, if you don't mind, Gwen, because there's a couple of specific questions. I'm just looking at the screen here, by the way. I'm not. If I take 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, will I get through? Well, you might. I mean, we can't say yes or no to those kind of questions of finite amount of time. That sounds like a reasonable amount of time. 2 hours a day for 2 weeks is almost 30 hours. But maybe there's a concept that you just are struggling with. You might need to spend a bit more time on it. Who knows? So yeah, it's tricky to kind of put a finite amount of time on it. That's why I said it depends. It's tricky.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's dive into this one. Blank was just released into preview last week. Will it be on the exam? Lars, super short answer.
No. It's so the exam in general, Microsoft's, you know, so there's a whole conversation we won't have today about naming of certifications and, you know, past and all that, because it's a much longer conversation. But no, in general, not. If you read the documentation, so the certification outline, and there's a Word document or PDF kind of thing attached to it, whatever is in that is good for the next couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. If it's not, it will say in there, on this date, we are changing it to whatever. So for example, AZ-900 changed in November. And from September, it was, September or start of October, it was saying, hey, here are the changes that are going to be in effect. So if you want to take the exam before that date, you know, go for it and you'll be all right. If you're taking it after this date, then you need to be aware of these added things, or we removed these things, or whatever it might be. So no, Microsoft's not going to pull the rug out under you. They want you to pass as much as you want to pass. It's in their interest to pass the exam, because then you get more into the ecosystem, right? You start using their services. So no, they're not going to spring any surprises on you like that. And of course, there's an exception to that rule. Something I've noticed is that they do tend to put in questions that are being tested. So I have heard from students and colleagues at ACG, for that matter, that questions sometimes don't seem to fit into the curriculum. And as far as I'm aware, and I don't work for Microsoft, we do not get told these things. We don't have any special access to anything within Microsoft. But those questions don't count in the score. It's a test from Microsoft's side to see if you have more knowledge and where the students are at that are taking the exam, and also testing new questions. So in general, no. If there are weird questions on there, you say, hey, I didn't learn about this, most likely they're not counted towards your score. So yeah, in general, no.
Okay, in general, no. Solid. All right, so I think that's the end of our frequent questions, but like I mentioned, a couple of us are looking at the chat. So if you've got more questions, put them in there. We'll try to get to them. And let's move on to a sample question. And here we'll just kind of go with the format of how we're going to go through these practice questions. We'll take turns going, reading the question, reading the options. So I'll go ahead and read this one. Which Azure service was voted top 3 database of 2020? A, Cosmos DB. B, Azure Database for MySQL. C, Azure SQL Database. D, HD Insight. E, Azure Database for Postgres. And then now you'll have a minute to answer. We'll give you a minute time. You can go ahead and put in the chat the answers. After that, we'll go ahead and show you the answer, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Seems pretty straightforward. Lars, I'm not sure if you have anything to add about this format that we're following.
No. Well, I can add a little bit about questions in general on the exam, on the AZ-900 exam. So what we're doing today is just pure and simple multiple choice. You get 4 or 5 options, and you pick the one you think is the right one. Sometimes one or more. There are a lot of different types of questions on the actual exam. From Reddit and forums and other things I've read, it seems there's about 40 different types of questions that Microsoft can pick from. You will not get 40 different types of questions on the exam. Most likely you will get something like a scenario-based question with 5 questions that you have to answer based on what the scenario is. That is not as common on AZ-900. And then you'll get something like multiple choice, you'll get true or false, you'll get press the right button on this image, those kind of questions. But today we're just doing straight up multiple choice.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and do the first question, and then I'll throw it over to you, Lars, after that one. All right. So first question. Your company needs to protect information in documents and emails, but the information still needs to be visible to selected third parties. Which is the best Azure service to use for this purpose? A, Azure Information Protection, B, Azure Sentinel, C, Microsoft Defender for Identity, or D, Azure Firewall Manager. You have 1 minute. All right, 30 seconds left. See a bunch of answers in the chat. It's awesome. Fifteen seconds left. All right, time is up. The answer is A, Azure Information Protection. I saw a bunch of A's in the chat, so that's great. We now have a screenshot of the documentation of Azure Information Protection, and that actually leads into the tip that we have for this question, which is understand the concept of what a service does, even if you don't know all the details. Obviously, the documentation is a great place to get an overview or as in-depth as you'd like on a specific service. And it's great to, as you're studying for your certification, try to get hands-on and just at least read enough to know what a service does. That way, if the name does come up, you're aware of what it does. Lars, would you like to add
I can
anything
answer
to
that as well if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. This is where the internet connection is interesting for me, because on a satellite connection, I have this lag. So I tend to talk over people. We're trying hard not to. But yeah, this is my world. Welcome. Hey. So in general, just when you see a question like this, so we have, AIP, Sentinel, Defender for Identity, and Azure Firewall Manager. Know what they are. If you look at this question now and you go, oh crap, I think it's this one, but I don't actually know what these other 2 services do. You need to know what all these do, right? You need to know what they do in general. And that's why we kind of put that question in there. This is a question that you should have an inkling, so just looking at it going, oh, that must be information protection, because Sentinel is for, this is a SIEM, it's a security tool. Defender for Identity is what used to be called Advanced Threat Protection. They just changed the name. Thank you, Microsoft. And Firewall Manager obviously has nothing to do with information protection in documents. So if you know the general, again, this is back to the exam tip from Paul. If you know the general concept of what a service does, this question should be a piece of cake.
Awesome. Lars, I see you've included a picture of your socks in here, so thank you for that.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
All right, do you want to go ahead and read question 2?
I would love to. So, which Azure support plan, so we're talking about support for your subscription in Azure, can offer the lowest possible response time for the most critical incidents? And we have A, Professional Direct, B, Developer, C, Ultimate, D, Premier, and E, Standard. So these are the levels of the support plan. Which is the correct answer? And you get a minute. Oh, sorry, I won't do that. That's not cool. Gwen's laughing because I just by implication implied that I am cool, and I'm not.
30 seconds left.
30 seconds.
You gotta hum it off key.
All right, almost 10 seconds to go. Last questions. All right, so the correct answer is Premiere. And I just want to mention, thank you, Gary. There is one person in the chat that liked my interlude music, so I shall continue it. One's enough for me. Yes, it seemed like most people onto this with D. I'm just gonna go back one slide. Oh no, we're not on the slide. Sorry, I'm looking at the screens. I'm learning. So I did put ultimate in there, and that's just a trick. There is no ultimate. And that was, again, this is an example of a question that can come up. I don't know why, but Microsoft really wants you to know about certain things, such as specifics of a support plan. Now, I think they just removed this in the majority of it, but still, it's good to know. But a lot of these questions just like, but I could just look it up. Why do I need to know specifically that it's 2 hours for a B-level type medium urgent thing? It doesn't make much sense when you sit there, but we don't make the exam, right? So that's why we put that question in there. Yeah, and the exam tip for this is, as I just said, question concerning levels and specific numbers like this can be a part of it. There are also some questions on SLAs, service level agreements. How do you get to 99.99% service level agreement or uptime? Those sort of things. But yeah, I'm Groot.
Yeah, like every exam's gonna have some kind of theory that you'll just have to memorize. So, just go with it. All right, question number 3. I'll take this one. All right, question 3. What are characteristics of Azure paired regions? And you can pick more than one. A, the ability to fail over from one region to the other in the event of an outage. B, provides the capability for some services to replicate. C, paired regions can increase performance of services by almost double. D, only one region in a pair is patched or updated at any one time. You have 1 minute.
Sorry. And people are dropping off the stream.
All right, time is now up. The correct answer, A, B, and D. I saw a couple of those correct answers in there. Exam tip, avoid overthinking the question. Often the most sensible answer is the right one. And yes, many questions have multiple answers. I'm just going to take a step back here. There was 3 options in here, which is, a possibility on the exam. And with these multiple choices, it's kind of hard to say, like, is it 2? Is it 3? Is it, that? So just try not to overthink it. Again, if you do find yourself with a question where you feel like you're taking too much time, give it your best shot and then move on, because you don't want to spend too much time on a question that you're unsure of and you lose time to go through questions that you might, feel really good about, right? Lars, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, there's based on that, there's a little tab or check mark thing in the exam on each question, and you can mark the ones that you want to get returned to later, which is very advisable. Go through it, do one pass really quickly. Some of them will be obvious. You go, yeah, that's obvious. Just mark the ones you don't know and come back to them. You do not have to do them in sequence. Some exams you do. There are certain questions that comes in blocks, and you can only do those 5 before you move on. You can't go back to those. But in general, the bulk of the questions will allow you to go back to them. So do that. And you have, in this case, 85 minutes or 3 hours on other exams. Use it. You're there anyway. So make sure you get it as right as you possibly can.
Right. Definitely don't feel like you have to finish the exam like as quick as possible. Take full advantage of the time that you have. Take advantage of the option to review your answers. You'll never know, like you might come back to them and the answer might come to your brain. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Lars.
All right.
Do me the honors.
Yes. Oh, it's an honor. Yes. I can get my raccoon to read it. Hello. Sorry. You're in a client meeting with a customer. They would like to run their website in Azure App Service. As in the past, they've lost business due to their own platform not being able to adapt quickly enough to customer demand. So this is a customer that wants to move to the cloud. Which app service feature will this customer, this customer most benefit from? So they might benefit for all of them, but which is the most beneficial? And there are 4 answers again. A, auto scaling. B, traffic manager. C, deployment slots. And D, Azure compute units. And you have 1 minute. And some guy named Adam Baller is asking 85 minutes for roughly how many questions? It's 40 to 60 questions. And we do have people looking at all the questions in the chat, and at the end we'll take lots of questions and answers. So please do put any questions in the chat, and we will try and get back to all of them where possible.
Yeah, Lars will work overtime to make sure he answers every single one of them. So,
isn't this technically under time?
30 seconds left. $15 seconds left.
Awesome. The right answer is scale out. And most of the people in the chat did get this correct. I can just look at the other ones. There's traffic manager. That's obviously to guide the traffic from when it comes into your application or your Azure infrastructure, put it in the right place, right machine. Slightly like a load balancer. Deployment slots. For an app service, you can have deployment slots. This is one of my favorite features of app services. Not the right answer in this part or in this type, but deployment slots are very, very powerful. So you can essentially have, for the same app service, you can have any number of deployment slots. They don't cost you any extra. So I always have a staging slot as a minimum, and I deploy all code goes into the staging slot, which is not the live slot. Obviously, it's not the one that people hit on my website. And I can test everything in that staging slot, and it's exactly the same environment as the production. And when I'm ready, you just swap the two, and your staging becomes production, and your production becomes staging, and you can deploy it to it again. There's a lot of cool features of deployment slots that people don't normally use. You can also use it for A/B testing. You can use it for some sort of load balancing. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with it. And then Azure Compute Units is just that. It's compute units. Yeah, it's what you buy to run a VM. So here is the documentation for it. Well, not documentation, it's the portal. This is what you would actually see. You do custom auto scale, and you can auto scale up to a number of instances that you want. Add certain rules on when you auto scale, etc., etc. It is a very, very neat feature, and it seemed like most of you did get that right. So well done. And our exam tip, as always, we have an exam tip. So when you learn about service and features, think about the practical value, because if you understand how businesses might want to use these features, just like auto scaling, well, a scenario-based question like this just makes sense. You go, oh, well, that's obvious because that's what that feature is supposed to do. Instead of just thinking of the mechanicals and the documentation and the theory, think of the actual application of what a business would do with it. It can really help. And it also, well, for me, it makes me remember the question better. So if I have a reference to real world, it makes me much more likely to remember the answer or what a service does. So try and put things into context of the real world, which is what I try in AZ-900 as well. I use spaceships and wooden trains and Santa mugs and stuff. Yep.
All right, we're on our last question here. I do want to take a quick moment to acknowledge this comment that says that Gwen's supposed to be doing a dance routine as per Twitter conversations. I believe that was something that Lars brought up. Unfortunately, I injured my leg yesterday, so I can't do it. So I'm sitting down. But you know, I'll promise to do it maybe next year or something. All right, I'm gonna take this next question here. Question 5. Your manager has approached you to say that the company has been receiving complaints from customers in America and Australia on the time it takes for images to load on their website. Currently, the only infrastructure supporting the website is located in the United Kingdom, and there are no plans to replicate this to affected regions. Which Azure service could you use to help with this problem? A. Cosmos DB. B. Azure CDN. C. Traffic Manager. D. Auto Scaling. You have 1 minute. Ten seconds left. Alrighty. The answer is...
I'll bring my trumpet next time.
B. Azure CDN. Let's actually take a look at, because this question is a little long. We can actually like break it into parts. But when you see like long questions like this, it's really important to identify what the actual question is here, right? So that would be the bottom part here, which says, which Azure service could you use to help with this problem? And the problem is that it takes, hold on a second, time for images to load on their website, right? And we understand that, and we read through the rest of the question, and we see that there's no plans to replicate this to the affected region, all right? So we take a look at our options, and if we kind of follow up with the tips that we've given before, where it's like, you know, any services that you see as you're studying for the AZ-900, like have an idea of what they do. So if you follow that tip, you'll know that A, Cosmos DB is a database service, typically not used for, saving images and such. So maybe, but not, I'm not feeling too sure about using that. Let's take a look at C, Traffic Manager, and could be used for something like this, but again, not too sure. And then D, Auto Scaling, which isn't even, again, this question is asking for a service. Auto Scaling is more of a feature that's implemented into a couple of services. It's not an actual service on its own, so we know it's not D. So now we're between the other options. And again, if you're unsure, the easiest thing is just not overthink it. And B seems like the best fit. And here we have a little diagram of how CDN works, right? So Exam tip: reinforce your learning through hands-on work. Memorization alone for all the material will be very difficult. We remember things better when we do them. Yeah, and again, it's also fun to get hands-on with, you know, these services. Having your own Azure account. Shameless plug: I have a video on the A Cloud Guru YouTube on how to create your account, how to set yourself up for success with budgets and billing alerts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, getting hands-on is fun. Exploring in the cloud and studying for your certification doesn't have to be just reading theory and watching a course. You can really just follow through the exercises and actually get them done, and be careful to not spend a lot of money. But yeah, Lars, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, why not? You had a good point, actually, and I have got my question and answer hat on. Just, makes me think clearer. Is that these long questions, it can be a good idea to read the bottom of it first. It's just the way the questions are written. It does make sense sometimes to have the question, if you read it backwards, because the actual question is at the end, and when you have the actual question, the rest of the text may make more sense. Just like the one we had here. And some of the questions, not so much AZ-900 again, that's pretty clear what the question is, but some exams have a lot of noise, especially the scenario-based questions, because they might have 100 questions for that and you get 5 of them, right? So there's a lot of detail that you don't need that is thrown in there. But if you know what the actual question is, then you can focus on finding on what that detail is that you need for that question to answer it. So yeah, try and read them backwards. I'm just looking through the chat here as well. There's a big following of my elevator fan music now, so just saying. There is a question here. Actually, we can do questions, can't we? Let's talk about the chat here.
Yes.
There's who was there? There was and apologies when I mispronounce names and also tags and whatever else you put in here. But Sukanya is asking in capital letters, so it's important. Any pro tip for 11th hour prep? And when you, not really, it's a bad idea in general, but if you have to, like if that's, your boss said, you must do it tomorrow, or whatever it might be, why don't you spend 4 hours and watch my course? No, that's shameless plug again. You can, there's a lot of good information online. There's also a lot of really terrible information. I would always go to MS Learn, because obviously Microsoft is making the exams based on their documentation to a large extent. We use that a lot when we create the courses for the certification exam. We just try and remove all of the typical sort of bloat that tends to come with documentation from cloud providers. Any pro tip? Not a pro tip. The pro tip is don't. But the tip is, you find the official documentation, go through that. Try out an exam simulator on ACG, maybe. Might be a way to go. Yeah, any other questions that stuck out to you, Gwen?
Trying to sort through them. We've got a bunch in here.
All right. Is there any way to create Azure free trial account without a credit card? I don't have one, that's why I can't practice. No, there isn't.
That's a solid question.
Is there a free tier in Azure for practicing? It is a good question. Sort of. So if you go through the MS Learn documentation, some of the, I don't think it's AZ-900 stuff though, but some of the questions will have a sandbox attached to them. Mm-hmm. So in order to participate and do the question, you need to fire up that sandbox. So that some of the questions do have it. You do pretty much need a credit card. It's just the way that they make sure that it's a legit account. So you don't have a bot that, create 6,000 different accounts and then you sell them, for example. It's when your free credits run out, they won't automatically charge your credit card, but they will say, hey, you need to convert now to pay as you go. So there's a few different ways that they need the credit card, both mainly for security of the account, to be honest.
One thing I can add to that, Lars, is when you do set up a free account, you'll get a certain amount of credits. I think it's 200 USD at the moment, but that could change. And you also get access to some services that don't have a free tier for a certain amount of time. But there's also a bunch of services that also always have free tiers. Azure Functions comes to mind. I know some virtual machine services have that. I think Cosmos DB has a free tier, a bunch of them. And then as long as you stay within the limits of that free tier, they're always going to be free, right? So there's always some kind of way that you can get hands-on and not spend. I'm going to reiterate this. Yes, set up a budget and billing alerts. Very important. Set yourself up for success. I think I recently shared a story that when I was learning, I spent like $1,000 on Azure Service Bus. I'm not kidding. That's not just a made up story to like plug my video, but it's true. So don't be like me. Be careful, but get hands on. It's fun.
Yeah, there are many stories like that. There's another question. Yeah, so Raul says I also try to create an analogy between Azure and AWS, and that's a good point. If you do know about AWS, it's not a bad idea to kind of mentally connect the two. So because and this is one of my pet peeves, AWS naming is rubbish. Like, who came up with that? I'm not saying Azure is great, but AWS, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Like, what is that? Yeah. It's an app service, more or less, right? So there is often value in doing that sort of mental connection if you know about the previous cloud provider. Another trick I've used in the past, mainly for doing presentations. So if you have to remember a bunch of things, have some mental model that is, say, like a house. So if you want to know, so you say, oh, my entrance doorway is app services and everything I need to know. So I look in the dresser and I know about auto scaling. So you have that mental connection as you walk through this house. So if you need to know about, virtual machines, that might be the second bedroom. I'm not saying that will work for everybody, but it's a way that you can have this mental picture of something that makes sense in the real world to something that doesn't make much sense, like very, very, abstract concepts in cloud computing. So there are many ways that you can kind of try and relate it back to something that will make you remember it. Another really good way that Gwen was talking about is just use it. Go and press all the buttons, set up a free account, try and set up auto scaling, try and hammer your own service with, lots of requests if you can. There are ways in Azure that you can also test your load balancer. There's all these different tools that you can explore. So there are many ways that you can try and get your own understanding of what's happening, and it really depends on how you learn best. Any other questions?
I got a good one in here. Is it different taking the exam from home versus an exam center? Taking from home seems like a prevalent idea due to COVID. And yes, I recently did a video on this too, so shameless plug, always be plugging. So you have the option for certain certifications to take them from your home, but there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. For example, you need to make sure you have a stable internet connection. You have, a computer that you can use. Obviously, personal is recommended instead of work. Sometimes work computers have restrictions on them. You can't have any notes on a whiteboard or notes or like loose leaf notes around you, because you actually do have to provide pictures of your space that you're going to be in to the proctor before you actually take the exam. No one can be in the space while you're taking the exam, just yourself. It's got to be free of distraction, free of noise. You got to be well lit because you are going to be watched while you're taking the certification. So those are just some things that come to mind, but there's an ACG Fundamentals video that you can watch to get a little bit more information on setting yourself up for success for this one. I'm gonna keep looking I saw a bunch of questions in here that are pretty good. Yes. Oh, I totally forgot about this. All right. To get more hands-on learning, we do have sandbox environments. So if you have an ACG account, you'll have access to that. It's also another way to, be able to get hands-on with a little bit of safeguards, guardrails. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, you know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I'm trying to get through all of these. Ethernet connection is best. Yes, that is correct. If you can have a hardwired connection to whatever computer you're going to use, that would be best. There was a question about Microsoft market share. Oh, I mean, the only thing I can add to that, or I guess somewhat of an educated opinion, is if you look at, Q2 for Azure was absolutely insane. So that should give us a little bit of a sign as to where it's headed. Um, yeah, I mean, there's no better time to learn than now, really. All these free resources, and no better time to get certified, really. Alrighty. Someone says here, Microsoft Learn sandboxes allow you to do like 10 labs a day, not for all topics though. Yeah, Lars was mentioning that certain Learn modules will have sandboxes set up for you, and sometimes they already have like some stuff already done for you, and then you can just do the steps that are relevant to the module that you're actually taking. So yeah, you have that option as well. ACG sandboxes, your own account, which I really think you can't go wrong with having your own account. There's nothing like, I remember the first time, all right, this is a funny story. I remember the first time that I set up my first virtual machine in AWS, and I felt like, oh, I was like top engineer then. I remember that feeling that you set up a complete machine via your laptop. There's not quite feeling like that. Maybe I'm just a nerd, but anyway. I'm trying to keep up with all these fantastic questions that we have here. Yeah, does Lars, you got anything to add or say or share?
I can do one, Gwen, if you want. I like this hat. What's wrong with my hat? Yeah, so there's just based on the home exam. Now, I just did AZ-104 recently. I didn't pass, but I'll do it again. And one thing that kind of threw me, to be honest, is that you cannot have anything to drink in there. And I think it's because they're worried you're going to write notes on the inside of the water bottle or something. I don't know. But just make sure you're hydrated. It was 36 degrees Celsius here the day I took the exam, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. Not too bad, but that's just little things that change when you have to do it from home, where I'm used to being able to take a glass of water, and it just wasn't an option. So yeah, there's the things, just read through the notes. And like, yeah, if your internet connection drops, it's it. You got to do it again. So any questions here from the moderators? So we now just something that I can talk about is that the recent changes to AZ-900. So there's been quite a few questions I've had, mainly on LinkedIn of all places, of what those changes are. I did write a whole blog post on what they are. In overall, not a lot have changed. If you looked at the documentation, the document for AZ-900 changes that were on the Azure website, or the AZ-900 certification website, there was a million. Like, it was just read all over the place, and it was very, very overwhelming at first, I'd say. But when you read through it, they just basically changed a bunch of wording for like 80% of it. They added maybe 8 services, I think, such as Sentinel, concepts like yeah, if I can remember what the concept was, the principle of shared responsibility, things like that are important and they weren't in there before. But yeah, I did write a blog post on it, and my updated AZ-900 course on ACG also has all of the changes in it. So you're good if you take that. But that was back in November. So that's the last main changes that have been. All right. So what do you reckon, Gwen? Anything else we need to talk about here? Oh, here we go. Is it possible to get a job? I like these questions because that's why we do it, right? Is it possible to get a job in cloud environment if anyone is like a fresh graduate? So if you just graduated, yeah, of course, you've got to start somewhere. And having said that, in my opinion, so this is just me, but I think employers, they look at personality and eagerness, or how much do you want this, as much as they look at skills when you are a graduate. So you displaying, effort and ambition as much as ability is just as important. So, part of that effort or part of that ambition could be do a certification course. Part of it could be get all of the badges on MS Learn. It's whatever it is that you sort of go, hey, I'm going to go above and beyond, just to stand out from the competition. So, well, absolutely, you can get a cloud computing job out of unit. out of uni or as a graduate. No problem at all. All right. Besides help remember the material on hand, what Guru Cloud can help people to remember the so what else do we have that makes people remember the material better? Well, we try and do everything within reason. So ACG, we have obviously the courses, but we also publish blog posts. We have Gwen's just started a new round of what we call ACG Fundamentals, of little things that just describe a concept very quickly. We have conference talks that we put on there. We have web series on different kinds of learning or different kinds of topics.
Yeah.
We have quizzes. We have exam simulators. And we really try and cover all of the different ways that you learn apart from in-person training, because obviously we can't do that as an online platform. So I guess if that answers the questions.
I can add to that, and also there's another question in here that it's pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah, but like you were saying, and I think I said this a little earlier, where it's okay to, like, you're watching a course, you have some kind of material, and it's okay to, do your own searches, or like Lars mentioned, we have like shorter web series that have information in a different format, but that can still help you study for your certification, right? So don't feel like you just have to stick to one bit of material. But the question I wanted to bring up here is, if for some reason the internet connection gets interrupted during the exam, what should I do? All right. I only know this because I recently did a video on this. But if you are interrupted for whatever reason during the exam, you can't get connected again, a support case is going to be automatically filed for you. And typically support cases, they'll issue you like a voucher for you to reschedule your appointment. If you do have any kind of issues during the exam and you are still able to communicate with the proctor, they're gonna help you try to troubleshoot anything in real time. Also, you are supposed to have your phone somewhere near, but not within arm's reach, so the proctor can also call you in case you have to troubleshoot issues. But yeah, that's what support cases are for, in case there's no way you can reconnect. One of those will be filed, and then you'll probably just have to reschedule. Solid. Lars, do you see any other questions in here?
Well, I just put on my 10 minutes left hat, so just so people know. There was one. Where did that go? Yes, make sure you go to the bathroom first for exams. That's right. I did hear a couple of stories as well about the whole losing connection, because that's an issue for many, not just me, when doing proctored exams from home. Some proctors will actually allow you to come back on immediately if it just drops out.
Yeah.
But they're not allowed to. So really be aware, expect to have to redo it, essentially. Also, if someone enters the door, my door is right behind my desk over here. So if I had my son come in, I would have to redo the exam. Yeah, even though, I know he's the cloud guru expert, but still. Okay, questions. Matthias is joining in. If you didn't see Matthias and Scott's live stream, it is on our channel as well on AWS exam preparation. It was really good. So that's Matthias that's in the chat doing all the answers. Thanks, Matthias. Maybe we'll just sit here and let Matthias do the rest. What do you reckon, Gwyn?
Definitely.
It's not like you can say no. So it says here, I don't have any IT background. I really want to start taking some courses. What is your recommendation to land a starting job? That's another really good question. Because Forest Brazil just made a video on that, on how many certification is the right amount to get a job. And it's one of those, again, how long is a piece of string, but it's a little bit narrower than that, because some people just like certs forever. You see it on LinkedIn, you see, oh, now I have 862 certs for all the clouds, right? That's not what I would do.
Right.
I would probably go, so if I was a developer, which is what I am, I would go for, say, AZ-900, AZ-204, because those are the sort of development path. Maybe sprinkle it with a bit of AZ-500, which is security, and kind of go from there, because that gives you a really good base. If you have all of the certs, well, then it looks like you're good at certs, right? Where's the practical element of what you do? so that's sort of do some certs to get that basic foundation knowledge. I would say build something, make something, put something on GitHub, make an open source project, contribute to an open source project. Have a record of what your contributions are, which is what GitHub does for you. Stuff like that, so that you have some sort of, hey, wait, yeah, I'm very active, or I've organized this, I've presented this meetup, or I've written this app, or whatever it is. Have something that you can show that you've used what you've learned, not just have 642,000 certs, in my opinion. Okay, looking at the chat. You got anything, Gwen?
Yeah, just to add what you were saying previously, I know in my personal experience, like having like some kind of IT experience in terms of like job, like help desk support really helps me in terms of gaining like experience, like people skills and kind of things that became useful in the future for interviewing for cloud roles and such. So I would say, like, if just because something doesn't have cloud in the title, like, don't be, and if you're looking to gain experience, don't be closed off to it. That might be just a little tip there. So yeah, but besides that, I think we got the majority of questions.
There's a question there about what about multi-monitor, just to go back to the product exams. That's a big no-no. You have to disconnect
You
the
have
other
to have
monitors. You have
only
to
one on.
show,
Mhm.
yeah, you have to show that you've disconnected them. So with the webcam actually pointed at the connection, say, hey, it's unplugged. And then you have to turn away from you. They really do not like other screens. So one screen. A room with just padded walls and a soft carpet and a laptop is probably the best part of this. I think best way to do it. There was one more. Where did that go? Linux networking. They're solid foundations to have. Sorry, someone's asking if they are, and Jared is answering. And yes, networking, I would say definitely. Understand how networking works. Even if you're a developer like me, understand what a VNet and a subnet and a VPN gateway and those sort of concepts, what they are and how they function on a network. Because you will come across it, even as a developer. You will have to manage some sort of network traffic somehow, because that's what cloud is, right? We use someone else's computer. So, all right, we got 5 minutes left. I don't have a 5-minute hat, I'm sorry. But
very unprepared, Lars.
Okay, well, yeah, well, I did have a 10-minute hat, and it's sparkly, so give me some credit.
Oh, to add to your point, Linux. So it was like Linux networking and programming knowledge necessary for cloud jobs. One thing I'll say about Linux is a colleague of mine recently told me or reminded me that in a way it all comes back to Linux, right? And I'm actually studying for my first Linux certification now, even though I've been working with cloud for a couple of years. So it's always a valuable skill to have. And if you can have that when you're getting started, you'll have a solid foundation for sure.
Okay, do you have any? Yeah, there's just one last question. It says, do you have any docs to follow for setting up servers, VPN, etc. on Azure to test and play around with? Again, AZG Cloud Play, what they call Cloud Playground. God, I gotta get my terminology right here. Is a really good way to do it if that is an option for you. Otherwise, Microsoft do have free labs as well that includes an Azure sandbox. They're very restricted, but you can do some tutorials on that. And I think that's it. Okay, one last one. So I do like questions. It's kind of why we do this. What if no language to background experience? Is that okay to get inside cloud? Yeah. You do not need to know a programming language to get started in cloud. Something like learning Python. Python is relatively simple to get your head around. It's a good language to start learning. A lot of people say, oh, what about Node.js? Yeah, but that's JavaScript. JavaScript's evil. Just have something else before you go into that, I'd say. There's a lot of gotchas in JavaScript when you first start out. But you can absolutely get started. You've got to start somewhere, right? You have to start somewhere, and you do not need a programming language. All right, I'll shut up now. We should show our end slide.
Yeah, we've got some contact information. Like I mentioned, Lars is obligated to answer every single question that he gets. So you can contact Lars on Twitter. I'll let you plug your own self, Lars. Plug yourself.
My own self. Yeah, I'm a bit addicted to Twitter, so I will probably reply to you. And there might even be pictures of hats as well. And or LinkedIn. I get a ton of messages on LinkedIn from students, and I love it. I really, really like hearing from students because that's the only way that we can make our content better. Is knowing what you like and what doesn't work and what works, etc., etc. So we're very dependent on that feedback and that conversation. Plus, it makes you learn better.
Yeah, I'm also available on the social medias, Twitter, LinkedIn. I try to keep up with stuff, but all right. And then I guess we have to say that don't forget to give us a thumbs up. You know, smash, destroy that like button, turn the little bell thingy, whatever. What else is there, Lars?
I quit. I refuse. I don't know. Press buttons, people, and comment on the thing.
Share, subscribe, like, comment. I don't know. You know how to use YouTube.
Yeah, all of them. Exactly. You're here already. You know how it works.
Good job, Gary. Oh yeah, let us know if so we did the AZ-900 today, but if there's another Azure certification you'd be interested in us doing something similar, like a live stream similar to that, let us know in the comments. 104, 204, 303, 500. I don't know. There's so many, right? Oh yeah, but
yeah,
let
they
us
all
know.
make sense.
Yeah, always. They never change, right?
God. Yeah. So, all right. But thank you, everybody, very much for joining us for this live stream. This has been fun, even though if it was kind of early here in the middle of nowhere. So thank you to my amazing host and co-host, Gwen. I think you'll see a lot more of us. Maybe not live, maybe live. Who knows?
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. It's been a great time. And we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and share. Sign up for ACG.